Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's quick video, we're going to be talking about the 10th house. I already made a series on the ascendants, so if you haven't watched that, I highly recommend it. It's my favorite series of videos that I've ever made, and it's the one thing that I'm sort of proud of on this channel. So if you haven't seen that, I recommend you watch that. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about the 10th house, which includes, most of the time, it includes your midheaven in here. Yes, you can have midheaven outside of the 10th house, especially if you're using whole sign houses. So first, I'm going to talk to you about the midheaven and what it is. And then I'm going to introduce to you a character that would open the door for you. If the midheaven was a place, then who would greet you there if you knocked on its door? So we're going to talk about that. Then we're going to briefly go through some planets near the midheaven, in the 10th house. We're going to talk about those planets briefly. And then at the end, I'm going to give you 3 tips on how you can connect with your midheaven in a way that would be productive for you. So first of all, what is the midheaven? The midheaven gets called the second ascendant because if you think about it, the midheaven is the ascendant that you sort of work on. And the ascendant is the persona that you have to put on because of your environment and your surroundings when you were growing up, when you were a child. I like to call the ascendant your spacesuit that protects you from the environment and gives you a world view when you're first coming into the world. But the midheaven is that persona that you're going to carefully curate over the years. And it is the version of yourself that it's similar to the sun. So the midheaven has a solar quality to it. And the midheaven is that persona that you are going to actively work on. And in particular, this is going to happen when you get closer to 30, after your Saturn return and all of that, because the 10th house has a more mature feel to it. So if you're younger, you might not necessarily relate to your midheaven just yet, unless you have a lot of Saturn aspects and you have that midheaven in mind from an early age, then the midheaven might be a little bit more obscure to you. And I find that it's very beneficial to study your midheaven and the themes surrounding your midheaven in order to get a stronger grasp of your lifetime goals. Because the midheaven, I like to envision as the very top of a very high mountain that is like graced by the sun. So that is how I would envision the midheaven if it was a place, because it is the highest place in your chart. It is the very top of the chart. And if you haven't watched my quadrants video, I recommend that one too, because I talk a little bit about that there. But essentially the midheaven is the most public part of your chart, with the IC being the most private part. The IC is akin to your moon, and the midheaven is akin to the sun. There's a solar quality to the midheaven, and there's a lunar quality to the ascendant, because the ascendant is a little bit more unconscious. You don't like try to put on the airs of your ascendant. It's just what you are born with. And the midheaven is very much more conscious. And I remember years ago, I watched a video from Alyssa Sharp, who's amazing. And she talked about how it's a very carefully curated placement, the midheaven. And how she called it your Facebook persona, your Instagram persona. And that really resonated with me. Because if you think about the way that you curate yourself online, especially if you have those more serious midheavens, you really put a lot of thought into the way that you are perceived on social media. So with the public, because remember, that's the very public part, that top part of your chart is the most public aspect of your chart. So that's what that is. So if you haven't seen any of my other house series, then you might not know, but I like to say that each of the houses would have somebody greeting you at the door. So if you knocked on the door of the midheaven, who is it that would open the door for you? And I said that David Goggins would be the person to open the door for you. And if you don't know who David Goggins is, what have you been doing? You really should spend better time on the internet. David Goggins is this ex-Navy SEAL guy who really is a motivator. He wrote this really great book called, I think it's called Unbreakable. I have it on Audible. I'm sorry. I'll put the name of the book in the description. But he really is essentially a motivator who tries to remind you not to be a slob every day and to work on your goals and to accomplish them. So the reason why I think David Goggins would be there is because the midheaven really requires conscious work and effort. And as some of you have noticed, particularly Priya has brought this up in the past. She said that, hey Denise, like how are we going to get to our midheaven if our Mars isn't in alignment? Yeah, this is definitely the case. Not all of us have a very direct path towards our midheaven. I really like to say that people who have planets close to their midheaven, or at least at the very top of the chart, or an aspect to the midheaven, then those people have, or the North Node. Oh, I love those. So those are the people who have a very clear path towards where they're going in life, but not all of us have that. Some of us have a Mars opposite our midheaven. So the thing about the midheaven is that because I like to envision it as the very top of a mountain, imagine this mountain is very, very high and it's surrounded by mist and clouds, like really high up there, right? In order to achieve the highest heights of that midheaven mountain, you really have to look past the clouds. You really have to look past the mist and trust that that mountain peak is going to be there. And in order to do that, you really are going to have to scale. And this is where the imagery of Capricorn and the goat comes in, because it does require a lot of trust in yourself and in your ability to hoist yourself up there and to crawl up there whenever it's necessary. So that is really how the midheaven is going to play out. The midheaven is not something that is just going to come to you naturally unless you have favorable things in your chart that are going to get you there. Some people do have a lot of favorable things that allow their midheaven to come about in a more easy way, and those people are blessed. Okay, so now let's talk about some planets in the midheaven. So if you have your sun near the midheaven, then this means that your solar energy really demands to be seen, and it really needs to be appreciated by the public. This can get a little bit tricky if you have like a water or a more private sort of sun, and when it's in such a place, it's going to be like a little bit like confusing for you. But nonetheless, know that when your sun is there, you are meant to shine. You are here to shine, and people are meant to see that. Unlike other people with their sun in the 12th house. But okay, so if you have your moon there, then this one can be very tricky, because the moon should be placed somewhere where it can be protected, because your feelings are very raw and you don't really want everyone to be able to see how you feel, right? So when you have your moon in the most public part of the chart, this can be a little bit difficult, especially if you have like a water moon or a very emotional moon. You can develop kind of a reputation for your emotions, depending on what those emotions are. So if you have your Mercury there, you would be known for your adaptability or for your intellect, for the way that you connect with others, and maybe even your the way that you speak and communicate. If you have Venus there, then you would be known perhaps for your beauty. You might be known as a beautiful person. Even if you don't consider yourself beautiful, if you don't have like the best connection with your Venus, other people will remember you for how pretty you are or how good you make them feel, because Venus is also about the way that we relate to others. And when you have Venus in such a public part, especially on the angles, that's going to make you a very lovely person to get, an easy person to get along with. And unless you have a tricky Venus, I will put the Scorpio Venus disclaimer, because you know how we are. So also you might be known for your grace, just for being a very graceful person if you have Venus there. If you have Mars there, then you'll be known for your strength and for your ability to stand up for what's right, and perhaps even for your courage, for being a courageous person. If you have Jupiter there, then you'll be known for your wisdom and for your ability to share knowledge with others, it's kind of like a teacher aspect. If you have Saturn there, then you'll be known maybe for your seriousness, or on a darker note, you could be known for your struggles. Maybe your struggles will be very public. If you have Pluto there, this one is a little bit of a mystery, because people might not necessarily know this about you, but you will seem like an enigmatic sort of person. And perhaps you'll want to have power if you have Pluto with midheaven. If you have Uranus there, you could be known for your inventiveness, for your creativity, for your originality. And lastly, if you have a Neptune there, then you will be known for being a bit of a fantasy, a bit of a mystery, and also maybe even for kindness, because Neptune is a very kind planet. So now let's get into the tips. So the first tip that I have for you is to really study your midheaven and its ruler. Become familiar with all the things that have to do with the sign that is on your midheaven, and become familiar with the ruler, like what planet rules that midheaven and where it is placed in your chart. Whatever house it's placed in, it's going to add a little bit of nuance to your midheaven. So study all those themes, and the more that you become steeped and familiar with those things, then the easier it'll be for you to see what it is, because the midheaven is kind of like a target that you have quite far away. And the more familiar you become with the themes of the sign and the planet and the house where the ruler of your midheaven is, then the clearer that that target will become for you. You'll be able to see it more and more clearly. And once you're able to fully see what it is that you're going towards, what it is that is at the very top of the mountain for you, then it will become easier, because you'll be like, that's what I want, that's what I'm shooting for, and that's directly where I'm going, you see? And the second tip is to vision board that shit. Like, once you become familiar with the themes, make a vision board. Have visual representations that are going to connect with your right brain. Because even though you can logically understand what it is that you're moving towards, some people are very visual, myself included. And really surrounding yourself with images that are going to inspire you and remind you of what that goal is at the very top of the mountain, then you are going to maybe turn on a part of your brain or a part of your thinking that you're not used to using all the time. Some people are very visual, like artists, and this is how they function all the time. But some of us are like, you know, hidden artists, and we need to activate that part of our brain. So I highly recommend vision boarding that shit for your midheaven. And the last tip is, guys, plan for success. You need to get a planner, write your goals in that planner. Once everything has come together, once you visualized it, once you are familiar with the themes, you visualized it, then you can verbalize it into a concrete goal and break it down into steps that are achievable and obtainable. So if you don't know about writing SMART goals, look it up. You know, I'm going to put it in the description. I'll find a video on how to write SMART goals, because that is the way that you can get things accomplished. I really recommend that. So that's a video for today, guys. I hope you liked it. If you did, make sure you give me a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed, subscribe to my channel. I put out videos every single week, and I'll see you in the next one.